Good morning. This is Mark again with the Caregiver series, and today we're talking about the need for control. It kind of goes along with the previous messages that I've done on our need for independence, and also most recently when our loved one grieves. Control and independence and that need that we have really go hand in hand. And I've just seen so much of it in my life as a hospice chaplain where people, we don't oftentimes realize how important control is in our lives until we have it taken away from us. I remember I had a situation where I had a woman who was living in a large city. Her husband had passed away a few years before. She had a condominium. She had friends. She had different outings and weekly appointments and gatherings. Her life was just moving right ahead. However, she was getting up there in years. She was now almost close to 90. And her family lived out of state. And so her adult children kind of got together and they talked about it and they thought, you know what, we really need to move mom, to Tulsa. And so that's what they did. She wasn't too happy about the idea, but she thought, well, maybe this will be a chance for me to get to know my daughter better. So she moved into her daughter's home, and almost immediately, because the daughter is a professional woman working at least 5 days a week, the daughter hires caregivers to come in through the day to take care of her mother. So her mother is moved out of her condominium. She's moved away from her friends. She's moved away from the life that she's known for years. And she's now living in this really nice, large home, but her daughter is gone most of the time. And she's having strangers take care of her, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, if not 6. And so, she's making a tremendous adjustment to all of this. But because her kids are basically almost half her age, they can't really see or identify or understand the things that are going on the inside of her. Well, within a year, her mother now is 90, 91, and she just is no longer able to even keep her in her home, even though she has caregivers, because the caregivers are not there round the clock. So she decides that she's going to move her mother now into an assisted living. And this is the real kicker. Before that even happens, one of her sons thinks, you know what, we need to sell mom's furniture. We need to have an estate sale. I mean, they're not going to bring all that furniture from this large city in another state to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So without really talking to her about it, without getting her permission, they sell almost all of her belongings. And they bring a few things, with her when she comes to Tulsa, but everything that she had known and had attachments to were now gone. Well, so when I come on the scene, neither daughter nor mother are talking to each other. They're very much estranged. And the daughter just can't seem to understand why her mother, is so resentful instead of being grateful, for what her daughter's been providing. And so it took a number of months, honestly, to work through some of that stuff. And to be honest with you, I really credit the mother really more than the daughter, because I don't think the daughter really understood what the mother was really having to give up in this change of her life. And so control is such an important part of our lives. I went to an assisted living, a very nice one. It's not one that I've actually mentioned before. And I was doing a program called When Patients Grieve. Because most of the time when we think about grieving the death of a loved one, we're thinking about the family, the friends, the survivors. We're oftentimes not really thinking about the patient. And so I was in this assisted living, and there were about 8 people there. There was really, I think, only 1 or 2 men in the group. And so it was my first time with them, and I just thought, well, I'm just going to kind of get to know them a little bit, asking some questions, And one question I wanted to ask was, did you come here, because you wanted to be here as opposed to having to be here? And there were a couple of people, I think there may be two people that raised their hands and they said, yeah, they just realized that, that they could no longer really take care of themselves. And they thought it was a good idea and they had time to think about it. And they were happy that they made the decision, meals being prepared, and there's a shuttle to take them wherever they want to go. And of course, housekeeping. I mean, it was just really, it's kind of like being on a vacation for them, 24/7. And so as I'm going around asking each person, basically, what they thought about, living in this assisted living, and it was a very nice one. We're one of the top dollar ones in the area. I got to this man, his name is Harry. I said, so Harry, what do you think about living here? And he says, it's hell. I said, what was that? He said, it's hell. And he was telling me basically how his family took him out to lunch, had already made all the preparations, signed all the paperwork, got everything done, and from lunch, they took him to the assisted living and basically introduced him to his new home. I mean, he was totally blindsided. And needless to say, he was quite, taken back and upset and angry. I realized in a short amount of time that this man really has no problem in expressing himself. But I must say, there is an art and a skill in finding a way of providing the care that your loved one needs while at the same time preserving your relationship with them. If at all possible, when you see, the handwriting on the wall, you realize, I've been caring for mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, friend, family, whatever. I've been caring for them long enough to know that they're not going to really recover. They're at that age to where, they're going to continue to decline. And you see that they really need help and that assisted living is a possibility. Then I would begin to start suggesting that to them and highlighting the points of assisted living, which basically means your meals are prepared. Most places have shuttles that they will take you to doctor's appointments. They can take you to the mall shopping. There are people that their age that they can socialize with. There are some good things about assisted living compared to just being alone in your home. And so I would begin by making that suggestion. And yes, I would more than likely prepare myself to hear no, thank you, never, but then, just kind of week after week, just begin to continue to talk about that. Look for opportunities. I'm telling you, pray. Ask the Lord to open a door. Ask the Lord to change their hearts, to help them to recognize that, yes, it's not an easy thing. It is a new chapter in their life. They're having to give up so much. And it is a grievous thing, as we've already talked about before. But I also believe that over time, as people have time to process, as they have time to think about really what their options are, there are many times when they will be willing to make that change. Well, what if I don't have that kind of time? What if they fall and break their hip? Well, in my experience, what happens is that once that hip is repaired, assuming it can be repaired, then the patient goes into a nursing home for about 2 to 3 weeks before they're discharged. That is basically the beginning of what can be a better experience in preparing them for an assisted living, or if necessary, a nursing home. At some point in time, they have to realize they have to come out of denial and recognize, you know what, I can't take care of myself. I was really proud of my dad. Even a year, really almost a year before, he passed away. And this was really about a full year. There was a season where he was not really able to drive, and this was before his arm had been broken. And I told him, I said, Dad, I'm concerned that you're going to be a danger to not only yourself, but to others. And it took about 48 hours for him to think about that, and he realized that that was probably true. He was on some medication at that time, and so, he just stopped driving for about 3 or 4 months and got things situated and was able to drive again, without any problem until he broke his shoulder. And so, again, just look for ways of being able to make this presentation, because if you just walk them into a place, with a suitcase and say, here's your new home, you may relieve yourself of the burden and the duty, but it could cost you the relationship. Children. Now, this is a different subject altogether, but even children have this need to have control of their lives to certain degrees. And there's one thing that people can control. If nothing else, they can control what goes into their mouth. They can control whether they're going to eat or not. And honestly, it's not always because they're not hungry. It's because they're angry, because all their options have been taken from them, and the only thing that they can control is what comes into their mouth. And sometimes that's how they just stop eating, or they stop talking. People that have even very limited means of being able to move or travel, that's the few things that you can really control: what you speak and what you eat. And communication is so vitally important, and not to presume, but to talk to them, do your best to identify with them, help them to understand that, that you're not the bad guy, that you love them, and that you're just going to take the time instead of just dropping it on their lap. And so I just kind of wanted to, run this by you today. I think it's really important. I've just seen it too many times. And one other thing, I don't know if I've covered this or not, but it's so important for family. Yes, I think I have family to come. It's not about you. I can't tell you how many times family have not been willing to see their loved one, even in a nursing home, because they don't want to remember mama that way. And so mama's dying. I mean, she's lonely. Granddad is lonely. Friends are lonely. But you don't want to see them because you don't want to remember them that way. And honest to goodness, it's just not about you, and it's a sacrifice. It may be a sacrifice for you to have to go and see them. But you have to think about them in this situation. And so really, let me just, exhort you today, encourage you. You've got opportunities, before you when you have a loved one to care for. Please don't hesitate to email me. If this can help you or somebody else, just feel free to share it. But look forward to seeing you again next week. And if you have any questions, again, email me, and perhaps I can address those again soon. Lord bless you. Bye-bye.